Yeah, so I was saying that this is a session that is very beneficial, especially to guys who are very new to Angular. So, and our plan is to start with like a basic introduction to Angular, then have these sessions go as they advance on and on. So, for today, we shall be covering basically more of the architecture of Angular, why certain things are structured in a certain way, and what you can be able to do to get started with Angular. So I'll be kicking off. So if we go to slide number 3, I'll be kicking off starting by a basic introduction to Angular and the benefits. So in case you have any question, so feel free to post it in the chat section. Uh, uh, Also, you can raise your hand in case you want to ask a question. Just click on the participants, then raise your hand. So to start off, so Angular was started or was first developed by Google in 2009. So back then it was known as Angular JS. So this is a question that so I'm recording the session. Thank you, Ross, for reminding me that. So this is a session that, wow, that was, what was I even talking about? Yeah, so Angular was introduced in 2009 as Angular JS. Its gradual development, seen it it started as 2009 as a library, then now it's in its ninth version as Angular 9. So the framework basically has gained a lot of attraction because of the way that it handles things. So in Angular, as we'll see in the next slide, your work will just be writing the logic. So anything to do with the boilerplating, the setting up of the project, Angular is doing that for you. So your work is just to focus on writing what impacts what your users want to see. So in the next slide, this is basically the evolution of Angular. So it started as Angular JS in 2009, then Angular 2, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, 8, and 9. So Angular releases a new version, I think, after every 6 months, and there are changes that come with each new version. So an example is there's a time that they introduced reactive programming. In Angular 9, they introduced Ivy. So we'll talk about what Ivy is in the next session, I guess. So yeah, so every 6 months there's a new version of Angular that is released, but then there's no much difference from other versions. It's just some minimal changes that take place. So did you know? So Angular evolved from Angular JS in 2009 to Angular 9 in 2020, and according to a Stack Overflow developer survey that was done last year, it ranks third amongst a web framework that is preferred by most. So that is Jquery, then React, then Angular, and it also ranks second after Jquery in terms of what professional developers require. So as we go through most of these sessions, we'll basically realize why professional developers, or rather people try to switch towards using Angular. We'll get to understand why it's a good decision going that way, uh, and why, like most powerful apps have been developed by Angular. So we'll get to understand that. So apps built by Angular. So we have Gmail, YouTube TV, then we have Microsoft Office, then Xbox, Udacity, Netflix, Upwork. So the list is very, very long. So most of the tech at Google is basically built around Angular. Most of it, not everything. And basically Microsoft Office is one product that usually amazes me in terms of how they have incorporated many things together. So Office is built using Angular. So with time, when you start working on the framework, you realize why like it's very easier for you to decide to use Angular, especially if you're working on a very large framework, large or huge project. So why Angular? So the first thing is, of course, TypeScript. So Angular applications are built on top of the TypeScript language, which is a superscript uh, of JavaScript. So by that, what we mean is that uh, TypeScript lies on top of JavaScript, and it has to be transpiled down to JavaScript. So basically, there's no uh, your browser, or rather the engine that interprets the JavaScript code for you, doesn't understand TypeScript. So the TypeScript has to be compiled down to Angular, sorry, to JavaScript. Then now after that, it's then when the compiler will be able to run and interpret your code. So you can, so the steps are TypeScript, then it's transpiled and compiled, and then compiled to JavaScript. So that is like a very popular interview question. So then why use TypeScript? So TypeScript ensures high security in terms of type safety. So you use things like types to be able to write, or rather to be able to dictate how something that you expect should be looking like. So by that, what we mean is an example is if you're expecting, let's say, a user from your backend, and the user has a username that is a string, then a user ID. So you can be able to type that such that at any point in your application where you want to reference a user, you get that type safety. It actually more gives you an approval that you are in the right way. So and that is something that is not in JavaScript. So you just write code um, in the hope that you're doing the right thing. Yeah, that is in terms of type safety and all that. So that is basically why, like, most professional developers love Angular. Uh, so another thing is it supports ES 2015, ES 2016, and 2017 features. So that is ES5 and the ES6 features, such as decorators and async await. So if you learn more about the history of JavaScript, you can understand what ES5, ES6 means. It's basically more of changes that come in JavaScript over some period of time. Uh, so another thing is declarative UI. So Angular uses HTML to define the UI of the application. That is, basically what this allows you to do is to make your UI more intuitive. I don't know if that is what that name means, if it's pronounced that way. So by that, what we mean is that most people say that Angular is basically what HTML could have been had it been dynamic. So by a dynamic language, what that means is that it's basically a language that you can be able, HTML is static, so, and something like JavaScript is dynamic. So you can think of the difference there. I'm still looking for the right words to put across, so I will get back to that, I guess. So any question? So in case you have any questions, just ask. And Ivy, you are not in any way related to the compiler. So yeah. So then another thing is Angular testing. So the advantages of Angular being a framework is the fact that it offers testing in the hood. So that is with Angular, let's say you are doing, you're doing a component, like Angular has provided a well documented way in terms of how you can be able to test your work. So in Angular, we have unit test. So that is basically an isolated test. So it's just like the act of testing a small piece of code. So if, let's say, you testing if you submit an email and a password, there is no error. So that is a unit test. But once you start making like a network request or something of the sort, then that might not be now a unit test. So that is more of, we are moving more into functional or end-to-end testing. So something that again is provided in Angular. So by basically provided, what we mean is that we'll see as we move forward, when you generate an Angular component, you basically get the component itself and the test file. And the test file has some setting, that's boilerplating that has been done for you. Then now you can be able to either change that to suit what you need to test. So we'll carry a session on testing in Angular another time. So, but that is another advantage. So then another thing is the Angular CLI. So this is like amongst my favorite. So the CLI is just a command line interface that you can use to initialize, develop, scaffold, and maintain your Angular applications. So you just install the CLI. Then with the Angular CLI, you can be able to create components, you can be able to create services, you can be able to create pipes, you can be able to create a lot of things just from the CLI with just a simple command. So what this saves you, you can imagine if you have to write a component, then the component takes the first 15 lines. That is in terms of how components are done in Angular. I wanted to look for the right word, but I've been unable. So there is like the first where you declare like this is a component, then you include a link, or rather to the HTML, to the CSS. So you can imagine if you have a project that is so a minute. So Lemayan, let me make you a co-host. So kindly note that if you join this call, then we realize that you've started doing something that is off topic. We will kick you out. So I've made as many people as possible co-hosts for that specific reason. So Zoom has a vulnerability, as we said, so that can enable people to do so. And we're trying as much as possible to ensure that our calls are not interrupted with such. But then in case of any, you can just always give us time to sort that out. Yeah. So the Angular CLI, basically, it allows you to focus on writing the logic issues. So on writing logic, so issues such as creating services, creating components, you leave that to the CLI. So we'll be able to see what we mean by that. So then, so another thing is the structure. So it's my opinion that Angular feels clean and structured. So by that, what we mean is the way when you generate when you generate an Angular project. So when you generate an Angular project, like you get a structure that comes with the project. So that is one thing that goes a long way, helping you to just focus on writing code. Then in case you need to change now anything, you can do that after you see like the sense of it. So it gives you more of a beginning where you can be able to focus your logic on. Then after that, you can be able to change that now to suit your needs. So these are just things that I picked from Stack Overflow. So in any way, I'm not, I'm also a React fan. So, but then, so as you can see, the first one is I have to help with the React project at work right now, which was developed by some hipster for our client, the hipster used 4 different ways to create components. So you can imagine that. So you do this component, then you go to another one, you find a different format. So there's that uniformity in the code base. So the next one is that React ecosystem feels like a bunch of jQuery knobs just found a new toy. There are no rules, no guidelines, no structure, just a complete mess of random crap made by students. I don't miss jQuery days. So just ignore that. So that is just comments that I picked of people that are basically more of uh, focused, or rather towards the organizational part of a project. I don't know if that is the right way to put it. But then with Angular, like there are rules in a way that you should do some things. There's a structure that you should follow on how you do dependency injection and how you do everything. So that is why like I really love Angular. So the last comment is my favorite, that I like React more when I'm writing it, but most code bases are pretty poorly architected. So that is something that I can say many people face. You go into this team, you find somebody doing something like this. You go to another team, you find somebody doing something else in a completely different way than the other one. So you have to again start focusing on the new way. So in the long run, once you move from a team, it takes like pretty much a lot of time for you to start uh, more of focusing on um, mm, architecting the code, or rather writing something like the structure. Yeah. So before we accept participants into the meeting, kindly ensure that they are verified. So we'll require you guys to be joining by both of your names, such that we can be able to verify who is a distractor and who is not. So in short, developers want consistency, and that is where Angular ticks. So in terms of providing consistency, Angular shines there. So is there any questions so far? Nobody has raised his hand, so I assume there is no question. Yeah, so another thing is Angular is a fully fledged framework. So by that, what we mean is that it comes with everything that you need incorporated. So if let's say you're working with a library such as, for example, React, for you to be able to start working on making HTTP requests, you need to install something like Axios or use Fetch to do that, which is but most people like will prefer working with Axios. So you need to install that. Then also testing, you have to like, if you don't use create React app, you'll have to configure it. So React gives you that flexibility, and most libraries do that. But as a framework basically comes with rules that most of the time you have to follow. So uh, or if you want to change, you can change them, but it comes with like preset and predefined rules. So yeah, so basically, yeah, so you don't have to put your HTML in a JavaScript file. So this was an argument that I saw somewhere, that people were saying that we are trying to move away from jQuery. Like somebody was saying on Reddit that jQuery was a decision that we made that was bad, and it's something that we're trying to move away from. So but then again, going into like another library list that make you like have again HTML in your JavaScript might be a little bit returning you some steps back. So that is just like opinions that devs have out there, which you basically don't you don't have to agree with. So yeah, so getting started with Angular. So before starting, so Angular has borrowed a lot from ES6. So in Angular, like most of the things that you see here are done within the HTML and within the component, the component within the various components. So something like for loops, dependency injection, which is like my favorite, then iterators, dynamic loading, then very simple routing. I will go through Angular routing in the future and we'll just like love it. Then another thing is a synchronous template compilation. Each time you just edit your template, it's compiled. So which is like a very good thing. So basically, we can now see like with each change in Angular, they come with each version, there are changes, but then there are noticeable changes over some versions. So an example is from Angular 2 to Angular 4. So Angular, like it was, the bundle size was made faster. That is, sorry, the bundle size was reduced and Angular was like made faster. So Angular 4 was also compatible with the new versions of TypeScript. So then another thing is the animations package. So animations also being able to be incorporated. So from Angular 4 to Angular 9. So Angular 8 also has it is full of new features. So there's bug fixes, performance improvements, and code deprecations as a cleanup of the decisions or refactors from various versions of Angular. So with Angular 4 to Angular 9, there comes things such as reactive programming. So you can go through RxJS. Then another thing is Angular now will require TypeScript 3.5 or later. So if you try to basically install Angular or work with Angular, you'll have to install TypeScript 3.5. So another thing is material design with server-side rendering. So you can check out material design. So it's just a design spec by Google, I think, which is very good. So many apps have been built around that. So an Angular has like Angular material, which is just like an overview or rather an implementation of material design in Angular. That is the right statement that I was looking for. So I think for now, this is what I had for you in terms of a basic introduction to the framework. So we can go to the next part, but after questions, where Ivy will be taking us through setting up an Angular project with the Angular CLI. So any questions? You can unmute, then ask. Uh-huh. So there seem to be no question. I think so. So we can go to Ivy now to start the next part of this session.
Calvin, stop sharing your screen. So hi guys, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Ivy. I'll be taking you
So
through.
Ivy, we are speaking. You're on mute. because
I'm not.
okay, maybe it's something to do with my audio, but I don't think so.
I'm on mute. No. Gako, can you hear me? So my name is Ivy. I'll be taking you through setting up an Angular project with the Angular CLI. As Calvin said, the Angular CLI is a command line interface to help you start your Angular project. So the first thing you want to do before setting up your project is ensure you have Node installed. And to install Node, you can check the node.js.org sites and install Node. You also need to install the Angular CLI globally and npm install -g at So what this does, it installs the Angular CLI globally, and after installing the Angular CLI, you can check the version by the command ngv. You can see my command line, Sindio. Yeah, you have to install Node version 12 for later, for Angular 8 and above, I guess. So my Node version is Node version 12, my CLI is 9.1. So after installing Node and the Angular CLI, what you need to do is create a new project, and you use the command ng-new to create a new project, and you give your application a name. I'll name mine ng events. So you'll select. You can see. Can you see my command line now?
I see it now. Yeah.
Okay. So I said you need to install Node from the node.js.org site. You also need to install your Angular CLI globally, which is npm install -g at angular/CLI. And after installing the Angular CLI globally, you can now create your new Angular project by the command ng-new, and you give your application a name. And you just press enter. And what that does is create a new project for you. Once you've created your project, you simply, okay, created mine here. Once you've created your project, you'll cd it to your new project. And open it in your favorite code editor. I use VS Code, so mine is already open. So what the CLI does, it creates a workspace for you where you can have several projects or one project, several Angular applications. So I'm working on a one project application here. So what they call the CLI creates the workspace for you and creates one default project for you. So there are various files generated here. We have the end folder, the node modules, Src, and the rest. So we'll look through each file and see what it does. And the first file we'll look at is the package.json file. So this file, it configures your node packages, the npm packages that are available in your project. We have the dependencies and dev dependencies. The difference between the dependencies and the dev dependencies is dependencies are the packages that are necessary for your application, are essential, the essential ones, and then the dev dependencies are the ones that you add to your project. So here we have this one, the default ones that came with the Angular CLI. And then the next file we'll look at is the package lock.json. So this one provides the various versions of the packages you've installed. As you can see, this is the CLI. Yes, it contains the various versions of the dependency, the packages you've installed in your application. Also, just a minute. In the package.json, I said it contains the packages you've installed. It also contains scripts, and the scripts here, if I say start, I have a start script. What it does, if I say npm start in my command line, the start script will run this command ngserve, and what ngserve does is it builds up our application and starts the server. So if I change this to ngserve-o, when I run npm start this time, what it will do is start the server, build my application, start the server, and open it in a new tab. So if I say npm start, it runs the command ngserve-o, which will build and serve my application and also open it in a new web in a new tab. As I wait for it to open, I say the package.lock.json file contains the various versions of your packages. The README file is a documentation of your projects, basically. So we'll look at the test config as we wait for it to open. The test config contains configurations for a TypeScript file, and tsconfig.spec.json. It contains the configurations for the TypeScript for the app, for the tests. Tsconfig app.json, it contains TypeScript configuration for the app. So the difference between tsconfig app.json, and this one, tsconfig is a workspace file. App.json and spec is a project file. It's a project file. Workspace is this one. Project is like one project. You can have multiple projects in one workspace. So I have one project in my workspace. It's opened. So when you build your application using the npm start or ngserve command, it opens this in a local server, localhost 4200. And this is how application looks like so far. Yeah, the karma.conf.ts file it contains configurations for unit testing rather in Angular applications. The angular.json file. Okay, look at this first. The browser list. Whenever you're creating an application, you want it to be supported by various browsers, right? So the browser list, it contains a configuration for configure how you want your project to be shared among target browsers. So this file is used by the build system to adjust CSS and JS output to support the specified browsers. So like Firefox and Explorer and the whatnot. Next file we'll look at editor config. Editor config, it contains configurations for your code editor. If I want my indent style to be space, or I could say tab. The indent size I could say 2 or 4. So according to your preference, the git ignore contains specifies the files you want to be untracked in your version control, like GitHub, you're using GitHub. So it contains the files you intentionally want to be untracked, like the node modules, the dist folder. Yes. Speaking of node modules, the node modules folder, in our package.json, we said we install the dependencies. In the node modules folder, all the packages that have been installed by the node package manager are here. So a long list. The end-to-end, the E2E folder. This one contains the source files for a set of end-to-end tests for your project. So the angular.json file. The angular.json file, it contains configurations for your build, serve, and test tools. It also contains your styles, scripts. Yes. Okay, so the next file I'll look at is the Src folder. The Src folder is where, as a beginner, you'll work mostly. So most of your time you'll spend in the Src folder. The first file I'll look at is test.ts. Test.ts is the main entry point for your unit test. Main.ts, styles.css is also your global style sheet. Any style that you put inside here will affect your application globally. So if I say let's see. So I change the style. So this style here will affect my application. It's a global style sheet. So whatever style I put inside here will affect every other component in my Angular application. We have polyfills.ts. Polyfills, it contains Angular. Angular is built on latest standards. So you want your application to be able to run on older browsers. So the polyfills.ts, it contains the polyfills for browser support for the various browsers. Icon.io, this is the icon that you use for your application.
So we have main.ts. Main.ts is the main entry point for our application. So this is the entry point for your Angular application. So the moment you build your application, this is your entry point. And what it does, it bootstraps your application root module, which is app.module. And app.module is app.module is in the app folder. So it's here, app.module. So before we open that folder, we'll look at the assets folder. The assets folder, it contains assets, images. It contains the assets you want to be copied to your application when you're building, like images, you want them to be copied as they are, to be used as they are when you build the application. So you put them here in the asset folders. Environment, it contains the configurations for your build. Environment.ts contains development. For the development environments, we have production files. Environment pro.ts for the production environments. Production is true. Yeah. So back to app.module. We said app.module is the main entry point for your application. So it bootstraps the app.module.ts. I didn't mention the index.html. The index.html file is the main HTML that is served when someone visits your site. So my site it's this one. The main view is uproot, this one. And uproot is it's this. Uproot is a selector for my app.component.ts. So in the app module.ts, it defines, it's the root module for your application. It tells Angular how to assemble the app. So it has declaration, imports, providers. The bootstrap module is app.component. The bootstrap component is app.component. Declarations, here you declare your components, providers, services, and such. App.components. We have app.component.ts.html and .css. App.component.ts, this one contains the logic for your application. It has the import statements, the decorators, and the export statement. In the decorator, we have a selector, which is uproot. In HTML, those who have done HTML, we have this div, paragraph tags, and such. So if you want to display a component, you use the selector. And in our index.html, we use the uproot selector to display our app.components, our root component. So we have the selector, we have the templates, which is basically the view of our component. We have the styles, which is the style for our component. This style sheet, this app.component.css is specific to this component. Styles that I apply here in this file will not apply to the whole application. So if I index.html, if I add a h1 somewhere, So I added this heading to show you the effect of, if I add here a style and say div, no, is there h1 here?
What recommendation?
I'll add another h1 here. So I have two hello worlds. I want to style the color of the h1 to be red. Only one hello world turned red. Because the style I put inside my component style sheet will only affect that component. So if I had put the style in the global style sheet, which is styles.css, all h1s in my application will have been red. So if I say h1 color green, all h1s are green. That's because I put the style in the global style sheet. But if I put the style in my component style sheets, those styles will only affect the component. So in my app.component.html is where I put my view. I can delete all this. What do you mean? I'm trying to open Chrome and it can't. Anyway, I deleted, I still have the h1 in my index. I deleted the view. So here's where I'll put the view for my component, so I can start entering whatever I want. So yeah. So once you've done that, you're already ready to start working on your Angular project. I didn't mention the app.component.spec file. This one is it defines the unit testing for your root component. So yeah. Our application has one component. So if you want to add multiple components, you could simply use the CLI to generate components. Just a minute. A very slow machine. I could use the CLI to generate a component. The command is ng G for generate, C for component, and my component name. If I want a component named navbar, so I'll generate a component named navbar. As we wait for it, what I expect this command to do is generate a navbar.component.ts.html.css file for me. So it creates a component in the navbar folder. The files it creates is navbar.component.html.ts.css, and also what it does, it updates my root module. So remember the root module, the app.module.ts. We said it tells Angular how to assemble the application. So yeah. So what it did, it created the component. It also updated my app.module.ts file. So it updated it with a navbar component. You can see here in the declaration array. So yeah, so I could add this is my navbar component. It has the HTML, the CSS, and the TS file. Its selector is app.navbar. So I'll copy this. And I want to display this component in my root component. I want to display it here. So I want to display it as the first element here. So what this does is displays this component here, and then after displaying it, what follows below is what comes below will be displayed after it. So my navbar works. So this is one component. This is my root component. So yeah, I think that's it, unless there's any question.
So I have a question. So it's something to do with maybe something that I struggled with when starting to learn Angular. So in case I need to, so we can go through in case I need to like okay. The first thing is what is the purpose of tsconfig.json and tslint.json. So the next question is like why do we have app.module.ts? Does it mean that our app can also support other modules? So it's a question that I know the answer, but it's something that I can say that I struggled with while starting Angular, and maybe if there's somebody new we could want like to clarify such. Yeah.
So the first question was what is tslint? Tslint, right?
Yeah.
The tslint, it contains the configuration for the linting configuration for a project. Linting is basically analyzing code errors or something of the sort. And the next was tsconfig.json.
Yeah.
This one contains the TypeScript configuration for a project. So yes, TypeScript configuration for a project. The only command here I understand personally is compile and save. This one is when you want your TypeScript code to be compiled to JavaScript while working on it, you'll set it to true, and mine is set to false by default, so it won't compile down to JavaScript as I'm working. The next question was app.module.
Yeah.
In our default application, we have one module, which is our root module. You can have several modules. So every Angular application by default it has one root module. So you can have several modules if you want.
Okay, I think that answers my question. So basically then you will have to include all the modules in the app.module.ts such that your app kind of like bootstraps them together, right? Yeah, okay, that answers my question.
Okay, I also have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to know, maybe for example, if I didn't want to copy the app navbar into every component, and I wanted it to appear maybe in every component, how can I go around that? Also, my next question is, what's the best way to organize maybe your components? Let's say, for example, I have an app that has authentication module, maybe has a dashboard for admin, for users, such. How do I organize my components? And also maybe if I have other modules instead, apart from the app module, how do I organize them? Basically, what's a good structure? Yeah.
On the app, on the navbar, when you create a component like the navbar component, you can use it in different places. So if I create another component and want to use it in another component, I'll just use its selector and display it there. I think I've answered that, Amma.
Okay, maybe to clarify on that, what actually you can do is so just leave the app.component.html Ivy. So in the app.component.html, which is like something more of like the main component that is loaded, the way that Ivy has done line 1 means that whenever you go to other applications, so most of the time how people handle it is that, or how developers handle it is that like they have everything, or rather like app.component.html as more of the starting, or the app component as like the starting component, because it's what the app component is what is loaded. If Ivy you go to the index.html, is what is loaded in the index.html. So as you can see there, so uproot, which is a selector of the component as she discussed. So what this means is that you can have your app navbar in the app.component.html, then basically have that other components are not there, app.component.html. Okay, not there. Yeah, so most of the time, just don't. I've never seen a scenario where somebody edits the index.html, not unless it's to add something like bootstrap or material fonts, something of the sort. So in our case, so Ivy, what you can do is, okay, we can't start working on routing now, but were we to work on routing, we could have shown what this means. So once you have like your app navbar component of HTML there, you can declare other components within that scope. So if for example Ivy creates another component, so Ivy, I see your file explorer. You can go back. So if she creates another component, if she creates another component, like let's say dashboard component, and she wants to ensure, so you can actually generate that, then so if she generates that, what you do is you just create a container after the app navbar, where you declare now your components in the way that you want them. So in the app component, you can then like have other components that are now declared there. So for example, you might have a card component. So like that app component. So if you go to the app.component.html, just create a div container, then with a class container, that is Bootstrap. So you can use .container. Then after doing that, he can declare the app, the dashboard component there. So that is, I think, app dashboard. So you can declare the dashboard there by pointing out to that selector. So this is what basically makes Angular awesome. So because you can see, we can be able to reference components inside HTML files. And once that loads, it runs together with the JavaScript and the HTML, which is like primarily what makes Angular shine there. So that now shows that dashboard works. But if you integrate routing, then you have, let's say, another place that you navigate to, the navbar will just remain there. So that answers your second question. So your third question was about modules. So if you go to app.module.ts, so if you create another module, it will basically just exist. If you check line 15, we have a browser module. A browser module is just like any other module that you can create. So you can create a module, then we can be able to see how we do that. So it's just like any other module that you create. So once you create that module, you add it to the import section. And as you are asking, if you create like an app, and that is where like I can say working with Angular a lot. So if you create like let's say an application, we can think of it something like maybe like maybe a hospital management system, something of the sort. You can have like the names of, you can have patients in one module. You can have things to be managed, such as beds, in another module. Yeah, so that separates that concern like that. So you can have authentication as another module. Then the way that you include that is in the app.module.ts, you basically add that module to the imports array. So as Ivy said, the declarations are for you to have your components there. Then the imports is where you put your module. So then, so basically when you install something, so let's say if you install something like a spinner, it will most definitely come with a module. So you'll have to include that module there for you to tap into what that spinner offers. Same to HTTP in Angular. You have to include the HTTP module for you to be able to work with HTTP. When we start covering Angular forms, you will realize that for our HTML to recognize whatever that we're doing, things such as maybe like working with forms in Angular in general, we'll have to include a forms module. So, and you can do that. So what that means is that you can have many modules, then basically include them in your project. Yeah.
Thank you for the answers.
You're welcome. So there's a question in the chat, quick question. Is there a way I can create two projects using the same node modules? I'm asking since these modules contains a lot of PC space. So Joseph, you can do that, but then actually don't do that. You can do that, but don't do that. So node modules basically is just specific to like the package.json. So if you scroll down, there's a log file that is generated. So that log file is what basically like tries to more of map whatever that is in your node modules to what you have in the package .json. So I'll advise that whenever you create a new project, yeah, to the package.json. Pardon? So whenever, wow, yeah, so you can see there's a package.json.log. So if you can go to that file. So basically, these dependencies zenye ziko which are there in the package.json are what is in the node module. So whenever you start a new project, don't think of sharing node modules. So it's just a bad practice. So you can just free up space in your machine, delete some movies, for you to be able to accommodate more stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a question. Is there a way I can create two projects using the same node modules? I'm asking this since the node modules contain.
I've answered that. So yeah, so and one thing is also, yeah, so in short, Angular is awesome. You can just try it. Yeah. So, and I will maybe like encourage when we start working with Angular, let's just strictly work with TypeScript. Let's ensure that there's no declaration of like, we ensure that the code base is strongly typed, like to be able to create that practice. So it is something that like we take seriously, for example, at Moringa, whereby you have to strongly type your project. So whenever you are expecting a user, when we'll cover more about services. So when I create a service that goes to the backend and returns some users, I will expect that to be strongly typed, such that whenever I start typing, let's say user dot, it brings me those suggestions that you are actually accessing the right service, you are accessing the right method, and you expect an array, and this is the data that you get back. Yeah. So when will you touch on testing? So we'll start working on testing once we finish the sessions that we have organized. So maybe Ivy, you can stop sharing your screen a little bit. So if I share my screen, then we go to, so we've been preparing for these sessions. So there is another session on unit testing Angular. So it's another session that will be coming very soon. So we also have that in plan. So we have the slides. So once we get like a good nod from you that you have understood most of the things, because if you go through the slides, you realize that we basically going through, you can be able to test various things. So an example is how you can be able to test components, how you can be able to test services, pipes, observables, and promises. So not unless we go through observables, what they are, then that is when we will now be comfortable to start working on like testing Angular applications. So this is like, I can say it will be around our 4th or 5th webinar there. So the next one will be about observables, okay, forms, forms, and working with the reactive forms in Angular. and then after that, I will do another one now on HTTP and services. Then from there, we can now comfortably do a session on testing. Yeah. So any other question? So where can you get resources to learn? So you can check out Deborah Kurata on Plural site. It's actually something that is recommended by the Angular team. You can also check the documentation, like the documentation is very brief. You can do the app there that is known as the Tour of Heroes. Then you can, basically TypeScript is just like JavaScript. So you can learn about TypeScript while you're doing Angular. Like that is how I first approached it. So so yeah. So then James is asking, then another thing is apply for the Andela Learning Community. They opened today. So ensure that you apply for it. Yeah. So then another thing is James is asking, when will these sessions be? Every Wednesday. So we were planning to have a session on Monday, then another one on this Friday, but we will like reach out to you guys. So there's a form that Wayne shared. So that form will enable us to keep like your email such that we can get back to you on such information. So yeah. So any other question? So how do we link JS and jQuery? So that is Titus asking. So Titus, for me, what I can answer you is that I've been coding for like almost 2 years now, and whenever I see jQuery, I just run away. So I have never worked with jQuery, but then yeah, you can be able to link jQuery. So jQuery is just JavaScript, basically. I guess your question is how do we link jQuery and HTML? So is that it? So because jQuery is JavaScript. So in Angular, what Angular is trying to do is, or what most frameworks are trying to do is just to get away from like that, the habit of writing HTML and in JavaScript. So like that is why most of these frameworks such as React came up. So like that is amongst things that that the frameworks consider. So that enables you to have like more of a control on what you are doing. So that is from a component level. So Titus, in Angular, you will probably, actually not probably, you will not like most of the time work with jQuery, because there's that direct link between your component, which is basically just like a jQuery or JS file somewhere, and the HTML. So maybe to show an example is I don't know if so we still have some time left. So I can show an example of what I mean by that. So 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 what I mean is so so what I mean is I'm looking for a project. So cd front end, then so let me show you. So let me cd out then. Yeah, so there's a GitHub up here. So let me open that. So let me show you what we mean by that. So this is just an app that enables somebody to be able to wow, why is this chat not getting away? Yes. So this is an app that enables somebody to be able to get GitHub profiles of users. So let me serve it. Then we see what we mean by that. So what you are asking is how can you be able to link jQuery and JavaScript? So you don't have to do that, because if we go, for example, to our if we go to the components that we have, then we go to one like the user detail. So if we come here, I've created a card that displays the user, and this user.location, user.name, user.bio, user.login. This is like the credentials that you get from GitHub. So and this user, if you go to the component, is basically this guy here that we've called a user. Bad practice, so I've used an undefined, I've used any here. Then I called the service, the GitHub service, and I pass in a user, then I get the user back, then I set up to that user. So what this will enable me to do is now link this user here. So you can imagine this being my GitHub profile. We'll go through how we do that. Link that user here with this component here. So that is what that enables you to do. So maybe to demonstrate in a little bit, so we can create a button. So button dot, let's call it button. Let's give it a class of success for Bootstrap. So then we have via click yeah. So in Angular, when in Angular there's something that we call am I forgetting the name? Yeah. So you can do your form click. So by basically doing like this. So and on click, so you call a function that is in your JavaScript, in your TypeScript. So that is called click. So under this, I don't know why this is not serving. So it's there. So under the component, you can come here and create that function like click. Then you say that console.log button clicked. So the reason that we had that error was because Angular at that time, we had not created this function. So Angular tried to look for it in the component, then it didn't find that click function. So now if we go to the browser, then go to localhost 42,000. So we have the users, so I go to that profile, then I inspect, then I just say that click. So you can say that it console.logs button click. So that is that simple, how you do it in Angular. So we will be able to go through such in the coming sessions. So ensure that you don't miss, how, for example, how can we be able to create a project like this that goes and fetches users from GitHub, then displays them, and how can we be able maybe to post something of the sort. So that is an example of how basically you avoid the jQuery. So in my HTML, there's no JavaScript. Yep. So, and for this to work, by the way, for these, okay, I think this works in Angular, but then when you're creating something like a form or something of the sort, yeah.
Kevin, hold on. I think someone raised their hand. I think it's Rose. Rose was raising up her hand.
Oh, okay. So so Rose, you can go on. Hi, Rose. Yeah, so Titus, there's that link. So that was what I was trying to like show. So we don't do jQuery here. So in that case, which is awesome. Yeah. So Rose, there's something that you're asking about. So let me unmute you. So Rose.
Hi.
Hi.
I have talking about in regards to writing wrong codes. There's an example you gave out, and you said, "Sorry for that. I have written undefined code."
Mm-hmm. Oh, what?
Yeah,
go on.
sure. You're right.
So this was a session that I was having. So I was basically trying to explain that when this component is instantiated the first time, like basically we have our variables here. These ones are undefined. And so when now we run, so if you have done React, there is something that is called life cycle hooks. There is component did mount, component did update, component will update, component will receive props. So yeah, those. So in Angular, we also have life cycle hooks. So a life cycle hook is basically a method that is implemented at every stage of your component's life. So a component has a life, like it becomes alive when you render it. When it is rendered, then whenever you update, you can also be able to like chip in and check whatever you updated. And when you like destroy it, or when it gets out of the view, there's a life cycle hook to do that. So what this enables you, it is each and every time you can be able to tap into your component. We'll go through about life cycle hooks. You tap into your components, you do something. So when you're destroying it, you can do like the cleanup, you can do unsubscriptions, you can like ensure that something that is maybe opening up to, that is creating a data leak, let's say, for example, a subscription such as this one has been unsubscribed. We'll talk about observables, has been unsubscribed on destroy, like when the component is destroyed. So what I'm trying to say is that on init, if you see this component, and if you go to the, I guess, the app component, you see there's a difference in the way that they are created. This one is just export class app component, but this one is export class app components implements on init. So that is because I want to implement this method when this component is initialized. So on initial, when this component, or like on startup, all these values are undefined. What I want to do is, in this case, call our service, then get a username, pass in a username, then after passing in the username, get back the user. So at this point, this will be like a user that has been fetched, so it will no longer be undefined. And this one here will also, the username, it will no longer also be undefined, so it will have a value. So yeah, so I guess that answers your question, right? Yeah, so yeah, so I guess I can maybe I guess we have answered like majority of the questions. So let me check if there is any. Wow, 8. So 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 the JS code can be written on TS file. Yeah, sure. The TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript. So yeah. So I guess like that is it from me. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has questions before we close the meeting, because it's past 10 and we promised to finish by 10 p.m. Yeah, yes, Ivy.
I thought I was on mute.
Okay. Okay. So on behalf of the whole Angular Kenya team, leadership team, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you for coming on to our session. This was introduction. As usual, the recording is going to be hosted to everyone. It's going to be hosted, I think, on YouTube or any other medium that we find. So we'll definitely share out the link. So just make sure you follow our Twitter handle at Angular_Kenya. Just type in Angular KE or Angular Kenya. You'll find our Twitter handle there. That's where we post all our notices, links to resources, our recordings, and all that. And if anyone has any questions with regards to what Angular is all about, the Angular Kenya DM is always open. Feel free to shoot a question, DM us over there. Please, we hope no one will bomb our inboxes with unnecessary stuff. We hope it's going to be questions that are very valid. We are going to have the next session on Friday. So still be on the lookout for our notices. We'll share to the poster and the links. As usual, it's going to be as an RSVP form where you will also be given the link to the call after you RSVP. So we want to limit these calls to only people who are very serious with the sessions. Because I know, yes, we might have like fewer than 20, but as long as those few are people who are very serious, that's how our goal. We want to make sure that we deliver the best content to you. And whenever you have any issues with regards to Angular, reach out to me, reach out to Ivy, reach out to Kelvin, reach out to Tabby, or reach out to even your fellow members, because some of them I'm very sure they are well conversant with Angular. As usual, we are all learning, so yeah, let's keep on learning. If you're not on the WhatsApp group, just DM us on Twitter. Yes, just follow us on Twitter and then DM us, and then we'll share with you the WhatsApp link. If there's nothing much to do, I'd like to close this session, unless there's someone wants to say something before we close. Ivy, would you like to say something?
I just had a question. I just want feedback. So this was my first time presenting ever. I will just love to ask how my session was specifically. Yes.
Yeah, your session was okay, but next time just try go a bit slowly. Yeah, but it was yeah, and it was okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nita, for that. Also see some people also replying in the chat. The session was dope, Ivy. That was a good introduction, great and informative. Thank you very much. Session was informative. Yeah, so I think we'll also send out a survey form. If you guys can be able to fill it in, please do so. Would like to hear your feedback so that we can see how we can make these sessions better. Yeah, Kevin.
So for me, I'll just like to thank the team for setting these up. So Wayne, Tabitha, Ivy, yeah, so and you guys for attending. So we look forward to like creating an Angular community, then start working on some projects within the community, just solving problems here and there. So I don't have anything else to say other than just to remind you to fill in the feedback form that Wayne will share with you. So maybe before we jump out, Wayne, you can share like a link to the form where if we don't have your email, you can fill that form such that we can be able to email you, like for example, regarding the sessions on Friday.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Let me do that. Also, I think Kevin had some giveaway. I don't know if Kevin would like to talk about it here.
So I was saying that I'm going to give somebody an access to front-end masters for how do we call it, for 6 months, and that looking through the Twitter, that goes to millennial.ninjago, something by that name. Yeah, somebody by that name. So yeah, so we're going to I'll be inboxing you the details, so ensure that you get to me. Yeah.
All right. So sharing the link right now, where you can just fill in your details. It's bit.ly/Angular intro. I'm opening up the form right now, so you can just copy and paste whatever I've written, bit.ly/AngularKE intro. I've opened up the form, so you can just input the information that you have. You can input your information, so your name and your email address, so that we can share with you the coming up sessions. Yeah, I think for the Nita, yeah, Kelvin will definitely communicate to you via Twitter for the giveaway. So yeah, just be on the lookout for a message either from Kevin or from the Angular KE Twitter handle. Okay, you can DM you guys on Twitter. James, hold on. Okay, I don't want to keep everyone here. So James, you can just you can even at us, and then we'll definitely open up our DMs. I'm not sure what the issue is. Apart from that, thank you guys for coming. I'd like to